It's a great reading. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm grateful that we have air conditioning in here. So it is cool to come to the temple on Sunday morning, actually. My name is Dambara. This is my wife, Manisha. And we're really happy to see you all here today. I want to begin with a reading from Yogananda's book, Whispers from Eternity, with prayer demands that he said came to him from God, and they're spiritualized. So the more we tune into them, the more we actually feel them inside. It's not many that he actually has instructions on how to say the prayer, but this is one of them. And he says, this demand especially should be repeated mentally with deep concentration until the prayer thought becomes fixed in your superconscious by the conviction born of deep faith. Okay, got that? So this is demand for the opening of the spiritual eye to find God in everything. My eyes are enthralled, O Father, with the beauty of earthly flowers, with life's passing scenes, and with the sailing silent clouds. Everywhere, all I see hints at thy hidden presence. Open that eye in me which sees only thee. With that gaze may I behold thee above, beneath, all around, within and outside me. Teach me in all things to see only thee. Open in me that eye which beholds everywhere thy hidden but ever subtly reigning wonder. So, we've talked a lot about light and sang about light this morning. And the reading talked about that fairly miraculous healing of Yogananda's that he describes. That may seem beyond us to be terminally ill and then all of a sudden have such deep devotion that we're just cured in a flash of light that everybody in the room sees. But it's not really that far beyond us, because we've perceived that inner light in our own way, in various ways, and we know what that is. I remember this engraving. Maybe you've seen that, where it shows this kind of old sort of person crawling along the ground in this sphere that's sort of the earthly sphere. But then he's poking through the edges of that sphere beyond, and there's stars, and there's kind of like astral sort of other sphere things out there that are like really fascinating. And it's just this sense of kind of reaching beyond the familiar, the limits of the familiar, to something we know is out there that's kind of super special and a little mysterious, but like even beyond what we're familiar with here. And that is the fact. That's the fact of our life. This is kind of an amazing dream of God's, that we're all here, dreaming just like he is. You notice, we talk a lot about dreams, and you think, well, but my life doesn't seem like a dream. It seems pretty real to me. But you remember that dream you had last night? Do you remember it? Or if not that one you had last night, then like the next one that you can recall? Didn't it seem really real while you were in it? And it's just like, wow, this is really interesting that these people are saying this. And then you wake up and you kind of go, wow, that was a dream. It all seems so real. But the masters tell us that this life is like that, too. And to them, they are filled with so much of that awareness that Whispers prayer talked about, of seeing God in everything, of seeing God's play behind it all. Yogananda used the image of a movie theater, which was appropriate, especially living in Los Angeles back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, where the movie industry was the thing, still is in a big way. But to walk into a theater and just look at that screen and just be so into the movie that's happening there. And he would frequently tap his disciples that he brought to the movie and say, look back at the beam of light. And they'd turn around and say, oh yeah, it's just light and shadows projecting out there and making this image that we're just so captivated by. The masters tell us that that's what our life is like too. Now, why would we want to go into that light or focus on that instead of what we're doing now? Well, use the image of a deep ocean. Okay, the deeper you get in the ocean, the darker and darker it gets. That light that's always shining out there, it's harder and harder to see until you get to the very bottom of some really, really deep places. And it's so pitch black that no light can get down there at all. In fact, the sea creatures down there kind of have to create their own internal light, their own internal luminescence to just kind of be able to see anything. That's sort of what this life is like. Because God created this world in such a way that he had to make us feel that we were dreaming and forget about that source in order to keep the show going. Don't ask me why. Ask him. But we are really enthralled in this movie. And sometimes we're so enthralled with it that we forget about that light source that's shining down from the booth. And so we kind of create our own excitements and enthusiasms about things, don't we? So I don't know what your obsession is currently. Is it like an electronic device that you've really got to have? Or a relationship that you just know is going to fix everything? I'll be really happy when I get fill in the blank. Or when this situation stops, or when they go away, or stop saying that all the time, or whatever it is. If it's something that we think has to satisfy a temporary, conditional thing that's particular to us, what's a lot more fun is, especially in meditation, that's why we talk about meditation a lot, because when we get really quiet, we try to do it twice a day as a regular practice, morning, night. When we get really quiet in meditation, we can just calmly, purely, in deep meditation, like the reading said, we can perceive that light inside of us. And the more calm and still we get, the more we realize, oh, there is that light in there. Wow. And that's just a lot more permanent than all the temporary ups and downs that happen in our life. Furthermore, that feeling that we have when we really perceive that, we know that that's eternal, and that that's the eternal truth of everybody else we see. That's as common to everyone as it is to us. The more we dwell in that light, the more we're able to just kind of be in that and remind others that that's their reality too. And that's what the masters are all about. They are so dwelling in that light all the time that their whole purpose is to say, guys, this is so much fun that I can't help but doing everything I can to share it with you. And so everything they do is designed to help us experience that same kind of joy. We had a kirtan on Friday night that was a lot of fun, and it was the theme was the inner light. And we sang one of Yogananda's chants that's called Opal Flame. It's one you don't hear too often. We're not going to sing it today, but I'm going to read you the lyrics of it because it's got the most lyrics of any chant he wrote. But it describes the inner journey when we meditate. And when we get really calm, you've heard us refer to the spiritual eye, and that is an image of what the spiritual eye is. In deep meditation, you begin to, if you're calm enough, you can perceive a field that's maybe purplish or bluish, perhaps. And then it kind of forms a little bit more to like a really pure blue with kind of a gold field around that. And then with more deep concentration, you can perceive a 5-pointed white star in the middle. And that actually is something that we're beholding that's part of us. It's inside. And it's a real subtle thing, but it represents the different stages of reality. When God created us, first there was God just enjoying his eternal bliss. And then he had the thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to kind of create this dream? So first came the thought. And then came light and energy. And then out of that light and energy came this material world. That was kind of the sequence of events. So to get back to that blissful, beyond imagination of expectancy reality of God's bliss, we kind of have to retrace our steps back through those stages. So from the material plane, we get calm enough to perceive the light inside. And then from that, we can, as Yogananda says, go through that star and perceive God beyond that, just like that character that's crawling along could kind of poke through and see the world beyond that. So listen to some of this beautiful imagery that Yogananda has. He refers to the spiritual eye as opal flame. If thou wilt see opal flame, drive darkness evermore, searing thy silence with the sword of pranayam. That's energy control inside in meditation. Through the star in opal eye, see the Christ everywhere, sleeping in every atom, in protons, electrons. Golden misty aureole adorns the opal door. Through the star in the blue, meet the Christ everywhere. Starry dove with wings of rays alights on forehead, showing you the throne of Christ in the peace of every heart. Make thine eyes a single flame to see the starry gate. Thy body will be light, illumining all space. By wise inspiration, follow the starry eye to see the Christ born in thy soul anew. Starry dove with wings of flame, baptize me in thy light, spreading my soul with Christ in the bliss everywhere. Shining opening in hall of matter, O star, I peep through thee into the land of astral light that kindles life in everything. Isn't that great? So just to have that image, the more we can just remember light. And light isn't just that blazing kind of flash or the sun or whatever. Light, in our language, is really nice in this way. Light refers also to just lightness, to levity, lightheartedness. So the more we can remember just, whenever, doesn't have to be when we're in tough times or stuck or whatever, but just to kind of think, oh yeah, light. It can either be just focus. Yogananda said if we focus at the point between the eyebrows here, just remember to concentrate here. It's one of the most practical things we can do. It helps draw our energy like a magnet up to this point in our brain, lifts our energy up, and we feel more lighthearted. The energy is going through our heart upwards towards the brain. We're remembering God, we're remembering the light. So whenever we can think to do that in any way, any little trick we have, to feel God's bliss, God's sense of eternal joy, God's sense of humor, that lightheartedness inside, the more we can see that eternal light, that'll help bring us home.
Good morning. Experiencing the divine light is an incredible experience. You might first experience it during meditation, and that joy just starts to emanate from your heart chakra, and this wonderful, joyful, calm bliss just floods through you, and you just feel this light happening. And it can be one of the deepest experiences ever. But if you're in a dark space, sometimes it's hard to even think about that light. Swami talks about how you can be standing in the middle of a dark room, completely pitch black, and all you have to do is turn on the light switch, and the light completely obliterates the darkness as if it never existed. But sometimes you can't find the light switch, and sometimes you forget that the light switch is even there. And sometimes you don't even care that the light switch is there because your darkness is just weighing you down that you cannot even think of positive things. And I find whenever I'm in a spot like that, it's not really helpful to be reminded that all you have to do is turn on the light switch and then there'll be light. Asha puts that in the category of absolutely true and completely useless. Sometimes we can't take that big of a step toward the light. And I found that baby steps work really, really well and get you there. It might take a while, but you can get there. Imagine a very large tower room, and it's as big as you need it to be. In the middle of that room is the thing that is tormenting you, or is baffling you, or is causing you to not be able to think about light, this thing in the middle of the room. And your room can be as large as you need it to be to get that thing as far away from you as you need it to be. Or it can be a small room and you're just going to stare that thing down. But the point behind it being a circular room is that it's enclosed by this solid brick wall that is pierced with a series of windows all the way around the circumference of the room. And you're standing here in the dark part. And you can't see anything. There's no light. And then something occurs to you that, well, yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better. Now I can look through this window. And okay, now I can think a little bit more clearly. Now I can sort of remember what light felt like. That was very helpful. And now I can look through this window. And now I can look through this window. And now I can look through this window. And this trip around that room might be a lot of back and forth. It might take you that way, and then something happens or another thought occurs to you, and you end up back over here. But the point is that the journey can be made, and it can be made in as small a steps as you need it to be. And each step, the more firm that step is, the more you really believe this spot that you're standing on, the easier it is for you to look through that window so that you can make the next step to look through that window. So for me, this circle window or this circle tower room has been a really important tool because I've been in that dark spot a lot. And I've made that journey quite often. And so I know that I can make the journey and that I can end up over there again. And it's fabulous to be over there. So all I have to do is make the baby steps. Dambara, and a lot of you know that Dambara and I live on a farm out at Laurelwood, and it's a small farm, and we've brought a lot of animals in to live with us. We brought llamas home and chickens, and we already had our cats. We brought fruit trees, baby fruit trees, and we just brought all this stuff onto the farm. And with each one of them, there was a tower room that I had to make my way around because we were doing things that we did not know how to do. And so when we brought home those 4 llamas, and they're big, and they're gentle, but they're big, and I had to learn how to take care of them, what they needed, what made them comfortable, what they were looking for, could I provide it for them. Just that whole learning process sent me scuttling around that tower room, back and forth, but I made it over to the other side, and I don't have to come back to this dark spot, hardly at all with the llamas. And the same thing happened with the chickens. We didn't know what we were doing, just went to the store. Oh, they're so cute. Let's bring them home. And my poor husband is saying, are you mad? I said, no, we can do this. And so we brought him home, and we figured it out. And luckily, chickens know how to be chickens. So all we had to do was let them be chickens, and they figured it out for us. So that worked really well. And then most recently, about 3 months ago, I brought home some baby ducks for the same reason. Oh my God, they're so cute. We have a pond. We need these ducks. The thing that was different about the chickens is that Dambara wasn't there. He had just left for New Zealand. He had barely left the country when I discovered these ducks. And I brought them home. And that sent me into a little bit of a darker space than the chickens and the llamas had done because I was doing this on my own. So I was way over here in my dark side of the tower. Like, okay, I've done this before. So, it worked with the chickens. It'll work with the ducks. Oh, Dambara doesn't even know about these ducks yet. Here I am. I brought them home. I've committed us to taking care of ducks, and he doesn't even know about it. But they're so cute. And we have a pond, and a pond needs ducks. And I've done this before. I can figure this out. But I don't know what I'm doing. But I can figure it out. And I got to talk to Dambara, and he said, I trust you. You know what you're doing. So I finally made it away from that dark spot about the ducks. And then earlier this week, a predator got into their safe spot, and we don't have ducks anymore. So I went way back here into this very, very dark spot. What was I thinking? I don't know how to protect these ducks. How could I have brought them home when something like this could happen to them? And I was in this dark spot that was really dark for quite a while. And the thing that was okay about me being here is that I knew that I had made that journey before and that I could make it again. I didn't know how I was going to do it or how long it was going to take me, but I knew that I could make that journey. And that knowledge is so important in being able to move out of that dark spot. I can do this. I know I can do this. on the farm, we live across from Laurelwood, so we're not really embedded into the community. We will be. Once the community grows around us, we'll then be embedded in the community. But right now, we're a little bit isolated. So I found this duck disaster on my own. Dambara had innocently left me on my own for an hour and went over to a class across the street, and I found the ducks. And so I was in that dark, dark spot all by myself for an eternal 20 minutes. And when he came back and found me in this dark, dark corner, it helped so much to have one other person that could comfort me and say, there, there, there. You're not a horrible person. You did your best. There, there, there. And that really helped, having that connection with another person who could console me. And later that day, I actually posted on Facebook that what had happened to my ducks. And I said it as gently as I could, but the ducks are gone. And they had seen films of the ducks learning about water. I took them down to a stream, and wow, water. And they knew what to do with water. They're ducks. They figured it out. And then they learned how to burrow into the mud bank, and they figured it out. And I had filmed this and posted it on Facebook, and then we took them to the pond when they got big enough to have oil on their feathers so they could float. And they knew how to get in the water, and they knew how to swim. And then, oh God, this is really deep mud, and it has yummy things in it. They figured it out. So I had posted all those things on Facebook. So my friends had seen this and just were enchanted by the ducks almost as much as I was. So when I posted that they were gone, I got a lot of condolences back, and just so heartfelt and so simple, just, oh, I'm so sorry. Or people responded with really important wisdom that was really good for me to hear, and I could move further along my tower room. And then and the reason I'm mentioning that is that community is important. It helps us in the journeys we need to make. People who know you really well can reflect back to you what you need in that moment, whether it's consolation, whether it's a reality check, whether it's insight, whatever it is. Living in community helps you move through your life. And at that point in time, I had to depend on Dambara and my Facebook community, because that was all I had available to me. But it still helped so much having that interaction. And the thing that helped me the most about posting that was just reading the names of the people who had posted, just connecting with that person. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. That person and that person. So that was a very healing process. And after I had done that, I deleted the post so other people didn't have to read about that horrible thing. But it had helped me move along my tower room. There's the story of the man who's walking down a dark street, and he's all by himself, and it's very dark, and he falls into this immense hole, and it's too deep for him to get out. And so he's trapped in this immense hole. And a doctor walks by, and the man calls out, "Doctor, doctor, help me. I've fallen into this hole, and I can't get out." And the doctor writes a prescription, tears it off, throws it into the hole, and goes on his way. And then the next person who walks by is a preacher. And the man calls out, "Preacher, preacher, please help me. I've fallen in this hole, and I don't know how to get out." And the preacher prays over the hole and blesses the man and goes on his way. And then the next man who comes along is a friend. And the man says, "Help me, I've fallen into this hole." And the friend jumps down into the hole. And the man says, "Are you crazy? Now we're both stuck in here. What are you thinking?" And the friend says, "I've been here before. I know the way out." Community is important to help you through things like this. I'm trying to think of what I was going to say next. Another thing that really can help is to find ways to distance yourself a little from what happened. Sometimes you just can't quite look at that yet. Sometimes you just need a little bit of distance. And so early on, I used the words of the wise sage Scarlett O'Hara, who said, I won't think about this today. I'll think about this tomorrow. And just the lightheartedness and the frivolity of that, it helped me move a little bit around my tower room. So that disassociation, that non-attachment, there's something else going on here. If I keep myself immersed in what's going on inside of me and only me, then I'm just going to wallow here. So I'm going to detach myself a little bit so that I can see a greater reality than the one that I'm trapped in over here. Another really frivolous thing was that when I grieve, I can't eat. And I lost 5 pounds. I'll take it. It was an important step for me because it did bring me around my room. And it was an easy step for me because I am so past caring about cultural expectations. I don't care if I lose 5 pounds or gain 5 pounds. I just don't care. But just again, that frivolity of that superficial realization, like I've lost 5 pounds, helped me move around this dark corridor. So I was able to use these superficial things to get me to where I could bear to think and be receptive to deeper things. Another thing that really helped was that I went over to Laurelwood and I helped cook in Grace, in the kitchen there. And I went over in such a bad mood and so dark, and working with the people there and cooking that meal for other people and chopping those vegetables that other people were going to enjoy for their lunch. It just really brought me out of myself so that I could get away from the poor me, poor me, poor me energy that had trapped me into there's a greater reality going on. These people are coming for lunch and they're going to be hungry, and let's make them something really yummy. It's an upflowing of energy that is much more profound and much more effective than I'm not going to think about this today. I'll think about this tomorrow. It really helps move the energy. If you think of the energy that moves in your spine as a river, a stream of water, and along the banks of the river, there's all these whirlpools, these eddies, where the water gets trapped, and you can see a leaf that just goes around and around and around because it's caught in this whirlpool of water. And you can stir that up, and you can watch it, and you can examine it, and you can splash in it, but the whirlpool just keeps going around and around and around. The thing that will move that energy is to increase the flow of the river. And then the power of that upward flow pulls the energy out of that whirlpool and frees up that stuck energy and moves it up so that you can benefit from it, so that you can move beyond what has you caught over there in that whirlpool. So helping others, thinking of others instead of yourself, looking at those Facebook names, cooking lunch for other people. Just this morning, Dambara and I were driving in for Sunday service today, and we were listening to one of Asha's talks, a recording of one of Asha's talks. And one of the stories she was describing was how, being brought up Jewish, her family was very intellectual and very proud of their knowledge and intellectual abilities and their ability to debate with each other intellectually. And it was just part of her Jewish upbringing. And she, after meeting Swami and coming on the spiritual path, she realized that her over-intellectualization of so many things actually wasn't benefiting her. It wasn't really taking her where she wanted to go, because other people didn't respond to it the same way that her family had responded. She appeared argumentative and cajoling, and she just wasn't having the same response that she was used to getting when she would debate things with her family. And so she learned that she needed to work more from her heart rather than from her brain. And now the two work in combination just beautifully. She has such a grasp of words and intellectual thought, and she can describe thoughts that are just wonderfully helpful and inspiring to other people. And so she asked herself, I wonder why I was born into such an intellectual family. Like, wouldn't it have been better if I was born into an Italian family with their heart-opening disposition, and like that would have balanced things for me? Why did I have to incarnate into a family that exacerbated one of my negative qualities? Why did I have to go through that? And the answer came to her is that because she wasn't quite through with that karma yet. She had to suffer a little bit from having that tendency so that she would understand it on a really deep level, so that she could use it in an upward flowing way, but not have it rule her life. And so hearing that brought me a lot further around my tower room, because I thought, those ducks came home with me to help me with something. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm done with it. And I don't know when I'm going to understand it. But because I've made that trip so many times, I know I'm going to get over to here where there's light and where I can understand it better, and I can move beyond this karma, and I can use that powerful stream of energy that's flowing through my spine, and the help of all of my friends and guru bhais, and the love of my husband. And I can get back to this spot where I'm strong and where I've conquered something that really needed conquering.